As you can tell, I still slur my speech. I'm not that clear. I found out I have chronic Lyme disease. What happened was a gift. You can use my book that breaks it down to 8 elements to say, I'm really good at this and I'm not good at that, and I can build on it.
Welcome to the Old Chicks No Shit podcast for midlife women who are ready to rewrite the rules and create their kick-ass next chapter. I'm Jennifer Arthurton, and each episode we dive into reinvention, resilience, and unapologetic pursuit of your best chapter yet. Because midlife is not the beginning of the end, it's simply a new beginning. Let's dive in. Today, we are going to be talking about wisdom. Now, any of you listening to the show for a while know that I constantly talk about us having wisdom as our greatest asset in this chapter of our lives. But it wasn't until I came across my guest's work that I actually started asking myself the question, like, well, what actually is wisdom? Which is the work of my guest today, who is Dr. Laura Gabayan, who has written a book called Common Wisdom and has spent the last number of years actually studying and unpacking what wisdom is. So welcome, Dr. Laura.
Thank you for having me.
So I know you started off your career as an ER doctor, and I would love to know the story of what got you from that to studying what wisdom is. Seems like there's a story in there for sure.
So yes, of course. So I was not just an ER doctor, I was a researcher. I have a master's, and after doing my ER residency, I did 3 additional years in training and learning about research. And that's when I got my master's. And so I was busy publishing in academia, and then I noticed in 2013 I started to develop random symptoms. As you can tell, I still slur my speech. I'm not that clear, and so I was like, "What's going on?" And so I was very West brain, like left brain. Western medicine has the answers, and I was the researcher. So in 2013, I saw doctors, and I think by 2000, I don't know, it took many years, 2014, 17, 18, I was like, no, there must be more to this. People need to think outside the box. Who thinks outside the box? The wise do. And I looked into wisdom and I realized we really don't know what it is.
Mm.
The Buddha mentioned it, some people said it, but we don't know. And I'm like, well, I'm a researcher. I can figure it out. I'll do the study. I'll figure it out. And so I interviewed 60 wise individuals across North America, and I arrived at the 8 elements of wisdom. I didn't like the idea that, oh, I know it when I see it thing. And so I had to define it and make it more granular. And that's what's in my book on wisdom. So the 8 elements, and I'm sure you can repeat them because I'm not so clear.
Yeah.
Is resilience, kindness, positivity, spirituality, humility, tolerance, creativity, and curiosity.
I love those. Yeah, and I want to dig into quite a few of those as we chat later on. But I need to go back to a question where you said you interviewed wise people. How did you know that they were wise people? Like, what was the criteria for wisdom?
And so, you know what? I'm a researcher, and I know, first of all, I didn't know them. So you can't select them because then it'd be a biased study. So all I could do was define who's eligible. And I'd looked at journals, psychology, geriatrics, all these journals. I mean, remember, this is what I was used to doing. So I looked at the background, and they had done research and looked in the sociology as well. And so they found that wisdom is not different based on gender, race, or political affiliation. It is different based on region, and that's why I did North America. So, for example, Asia or the Middle East would be different. and it is different. It peaks. It has an inverse view relationship with age, so
Mm,
that people around 50 to 80 peak at their wisdom. So that's why I only interviewed. The only criteria I had was that they were 56, 50, age 50 to 79. And the
okay.
rest was, I just essentially, in when I started the study, I hired a research assistant and a marketing specialist, and we posted it everywhere. And whether it was social media, everywhere was, do you know someone wise?
Mm,
And that's how I came up with the 60.
right. That's cool. So how would you define wisdom, like in plain language? What's the definition you use?
Plain language, I would say someone. It's funny because I had a definition based on literature from before, and no one used it when they nominated someone for the project. But someone who has great life intelligence,
Great life.
makes good decisions, and gives sound advice.
Mm. So,
And
sorry, go ahead. Finish your
yeah,
thought.
that was it.
Oh, okay. No, because I was just going to say, when I think about like, okay, wise people that I know, first of all, it's people who have had like a range of experiences, right? So that they have like a, a frame of reference or a comparison point for their various experiences, right? But then when I started thinking about it more, your book kind of started taking me down this rabbit hole where I was like, but aren't we all wise kind of in our own way?
And that's the idea, is that you can use my book that breaks it down to 8 elements to say, I'm really good at this and I'm not good at that, and I can build on this. Like, for example, I was a scientist, and spirituality is nothing that I learned about. In fact, it was when I wrote that chapter, my editor was like, no, no, you're going to have to
Yeah.
rewrite it at the end. And I wrote everything until my spirituality chapter was all the way at the end, because I didn't grow up with it. I learned that if you can't see it, you can't measure it, if you can't explain it, it doesn't exist. And spirituality is the opposite of that. It's what you can't explain. It's why people are attracted to others. Why friendships occur, why relationships occur. It's what you can't explain. And so it's interesting because when I thought about wisdom, there are parts of it that's the whole idea of my book, is you can focus on something and it won't happen overnight. Yes, we all have it. I think the key is we can all get better at it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've defined the eight the eight reference points, I guess, for wisdom. So just resilience, kindness, positivity, spirituality, humility, tolerance, creativity, and curiosity. And you just referenced spirituality, but which one of these kind of surprised you the most as far as being included in the definition of
It's funny, I've been asked that, and it was kindness. The second element
kindness?
surprised me the
Yeah.
most because I didn't really grow up with it, but it's kind of how my husband and his family just operates. Kindness is very important to them. It's just how they think, how they operate. And I always grew up thinking kindness was weakness. And it's the opposite. I think if you're confident, and then you can be kind. If you're secure in what you're doing or what you're saying, you can be kind about it. So that one was a surprising factor. And of the 10 questions I asked everyone, it's not like I said, oh, what makes wisdom? No, because it's not like they would know. I asked
Right.
them, what's really important to you? I asked them many questions, but one of the things is, what's really important to you when you meet people? And they said that they're kind.
Mm,
And when they said that over and over and over again, that became my second element. So the first is the most common, resilience.
yeah.
They had gone through horrible life events. And the last was less common. It's funny because creativity and curiosity, they had to say it. Unlike the first six, they didn't have to say the word. But the last two, they had to say the word. So that's why it ended up being not as common.
Right. So, which one of these 8 elements do you think has, now that you've learned them, has kind of changed the way you approach your own life?
I don't know if it's changed. It's definitely kindness has made me think. When I
Right.
say something, I'm like, can I say that in a kinder way? When I do something, can it be
Right.
kinder? Or positivity, I think I am an innately positive person, but I think it's just more, I think more about them.
Right. Right. Because when I was reading through the list, I mean, I was surprised by spirituality as well too, because I didn't think about that as necessarily related to wisdom. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense to me because, and it kind of ties into curiosity in that a lot of the most wise people that I know are open to parts of things that they can't see or touch. Like they're curious about it, right? Like they know all this stuff, but yet there's an open space in front of them that could be filled with something. So, um, and I reference my dad in this. Like my dad is 90 and he's what I would consider a very wise person. And as he's gotten older and wiser, his acceptance of spirituality has grown significantly, which I
And
thought
then,
was kind of
it's
really
funny,
interesting.
that chapter, I specifically separated spirituality from religiosity because you
Right.
can have one and not the other.
Right. Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. And I mean it in the broadest sense beyond religion, because I think religion is a component of it, but it's so much bigger than that. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And
And
I,
I feel like, look, we're humans, we're mortals. I don't think we'll ever figure that world out. But it's definitely something that I'm more open to now than I ever was before.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I see that too, like in the work that I do. It's like there is a much more sense of openness to spirituality and things beyond our vision, things beyond necessarily this world, like leaving little spaces for mystery and magic, right,
Yes.
is what I call it, to play a role in it, which
And
is
there
so interesting.
is. There are miracles happen, things happen that you can't explain.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure. And talk to me a bit about resilience. Like, resilience, I often think about like, okay, in your mind, what's the difference between resilience and just kind of like powering through something, right? Like,
They're similar, and the idea is to never give up. The idea is that the situation is happening, and you not only have to, it's not only happening to you, it's happening for you. So when you
right.
look at it, and so, for example, when I lost my home to the wildfires in January
Oh,
in
wow.
California, I met, the first thing I thought about was, oh my God, those 60 people I interviewed had gone through horrible life events. A lot of them had. And if they could do it, so could I. So it's just the idea that, yes, powering through, but also just the way you look at an event, whatever happens, as an opportunity to grow and
Right.
learn.
Right. Yeah, because I think that when I think about wisdom, like resilience kind of goes hand in hand with that. Because to your point, they had to go through something and come out the other side of it, which gave them perspective.
Well, I said in my book too, the person you're going to ask advice from is the last person you ask advice from if you're going through a difficult time, is that person who seems to have it all. right? They have a lot of money,
Right.
they have this, have that, who have not encountered a lot. That's not a person you want to hear from. You want to hear the words from someone who's gone through a difficult time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And do you think, um, I mean, wisdom obviously is a function of experience, but I like in your work, you kind of are leaning towards the fact that all of these 8 traits can be learned,
Definitely.
right?
And I feel like, it's funny because I interviewed one person and she was nominated by someone else, someone who I went to med school with. And she was nominated. She was talking about this other person. She has no idea that I study wisdom every day. This is so great. I do it every. She kept sending me articles, and the person who recommended her had no idea that's what she does. But yeah, but it can be as little as realizing it's those 8 traits or studying it every day like she did. Could be one or the other, but yes, they can definitely be learned.
Right. So, how does wisdom then, whether it's gained through experience or whether it's been learned, like how does wisdom make our life better? Like, how does it impact us on a day to day basis? In our lives, and maybe in, when we're thinking about, okay, where do I go next? What do I have to do when we're in transition? Like, how does that help us?
Well, I mean, it's funny because we're in the age of the internet and social media, and wisdom has really taken a back seat to people wanting to show off and tell this glamour and glitz. And I feel like wisdom gives you meaning, gives you a sense of fulfillment, value of life that those things don't.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's interesting. And I reference this because I did your wisdom quiz.
Oh, the
And
IQ test. Oh, that took a long time. How is it?
it was good. It was interesting. And why I found it interesting was because, like I said, a lot of the things kind of made sense to me intuitively. Like, I was surprised to see spirituality, and I kind of did it green before I started like digging into your work and listening to the book and stuff. Um, I
Sorry.
did it. Oh, no problem.
Sorry, my phone is. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no problem. We can edit that part out. Um,
Yeah. So,
I
wisdom IQ test.
Yeah, so I did the wisdom IQ test, and I kind of did it before I did anything else. And for most of us ambitious women, it's like, oh, I like to see high scores on my test. There were two areas where I'm like, humility and creativity were like, I think the score was 6 out of 8. So it wasn't like,
No,
but I
that's
was
pretty
like,
good.
yeah, right. So good. But of course my brain went to, like, okay, so how do I learn these things? Like, how do I improve my score on these things? So when we talk about like kind of these 8 traits of wisdom being, something that we can gather through experience, and I think that's probably the way most of us do, especially in this chapter of our lives. But then how do we learn the other things that that we want to increase or whatever?
Well, humility and creativity, for example, any of the elements, we're fortunate enough to have the internet, to have AI there that can help us. But creativity is, first of all, someone's like, oh, I don't know if I'm creative. Am I creative? How do I gain? I'm like, first of all, think about yourself as a kid.
Yeah.
All kids are creative and curious, right? They take the most random things, bed sheets, and turn them into a fort. Kids have it in them, and then we lose it. So I think creativity is more personal, in that the one thing you don't want to do with any of the 8 is do something that's not comfortable, something that's not going to stick. So being creative can be as easy as taking a different road in the morning, dressing a little different, trying new things, just being creative with what there's, just think to yourself, in a given day, what do I do? How can I change it? And how can I do it so it's comfortable?
Mm.
and do it, and just as long as you make it an important part of your life, it'll start becoming an important part of life.
Right. So again, that to me kind of plays back into curiosity. Like it's just kind of like, well, what if I did it this way? What if I did it that way? Are
And I
they?
feel like the two are related,
Yeah.
and that and you mentioned this before, curiosity and spirituality are definitely related. That's why I wrote my journal, and I think one of the questions I have in the journal relates to two. And but sorry, going back to creativity and curiosity, it is, they are related, and they kind of feed off each other. And I think the idea is, you know, I'm a human, you're not a robot. And what can make you, what is gonna add and make you different?
Right. Right. So how does okay, how am I going to ask this question? Because I like so many questions are popping off in my brain right now. So when I talk about wisdom as being our greatest asset in this chapter of our lives, right? I talk about it as being having like knowledge, experience, perspective, definitely resilience. Because by the time we reach our, late 40s, 50s, we've been through some shit, right? Like we've experienced some stuff, right?
Right.
So, it's like building on it's life experience, building it up to creates a body of wisdom, right? And that's where I kind of went back to the fact that, yeah, we're all wise in our own way because we've had our own experiences, right?
True.
But when I
In a
come
way,
to,
a difficulty, like what happened to me, I
yeah,
found out I have chronic Lyme disease. I was bitten when I was college, and I'm trying to kill. I've killed off most of the bugs except the one that's causing me to act like I have a stroke. But what happened to me, for me, or whatever, what happened was a gift. And so all these
mm,
experiences you talk about are gifts, they're lessons.
yeah, like how would you describe this gift that was given to you? Because most people are listening thinking, wow, like you've suffered some pretty serious physical issues, yet you view it as a gift. What has this experience given you?
Well, I think, first of all, it has allowed me to kind of reroute my life. And
Mm,
or else I would have been the running around physician in the ER, and putting my head in the sand and just running around doing that and being so open to Western medicine only. And so
right.
this has kind of opened my mind up. This has been a gift in that if someone signs up for my newsletter and gets the Wisdom Wednesdays every Wednesday
Yeah.
from Gabayan.com, it's funny because I went to my family camp for my alma mater earlier this month in August, and one of the surgeons, she's a surgeon. She's like, yeah, you know what? She talked about how, don't worry, you'll be fine next time. And I said, whenever the time is right, I'll get better. And she was describing how I was before. And if you know surgeons, it doesn't happen often
No.
that they give compliments to other specialties. They don't.
Right.
And she said that, and I was like, I think I really needed this. If I had a limp, if I had this, I would just work through it. But this was like a whole life change. I needed this. So it was a way to kind of refocus my life. And I think what it has really allowed me to do is kind of think outside the box, think bigger. And also, it's made me think about those 8 elements I would have never thought about before. So it's given me so much.
I love this so much because I talk about this a lot on the podcast in that no matter what's going on in your life, it's happening for you, right? Like sometimes the best gifts come in the ugliest packages. When I look at like
True.
my own, I call my midlife crisis, which now was like the best gift I could have ever have gotten in this life because it brought me back to myself. But it's hard for us to look at our lives when we're in the middle of the shit, like when we're just in it, to be like, oh, this is leading me somewhere, this is taking me somewhere.
It's so hard. It's so
Yeah.
hard to do that. And I think it's natural to be upset about it in the beginning. And I've had my days, I've cried, I've been emotional, I've had all that. But when I think about the whole thing, I'm happy that it happened. Or I
Yeah.
know that it's brought me so much. So I think let yourself have the emotions. Emotions are
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
and a person should. And that's another thing. As a physician researcher, I didn't really address my emotions before, but emotions
Right.
are real, and they're there to kind of remind you that something is important to you. But I think after you have your emotions, after you have your sadness and grief and all of that, I think you really need to reframe and be like, what and how is this helping me?
Yeah.
So think of it as a two-step process.
Yeah. Yeah. The, like the universe has a way of picking us up off the path that we're on and plopping us on the new one, right? Like that
Yes,
was definitely the case for me, right? And the
and
universe
for
will,
me,
yeah, and for you, exactly. And the universe will has a way of speaking to you in a way that you cannot miss, right? So like you said, had you had a limp or had you been, able to physically keep functioning in the way that you were, you might not ever have gotten to this body of work which has significantly opened up your life.
yeah, no, never. And you know what? I knew that I've gone through difficulty in my life. I knew I enjoyed connecting with others. I knew I enjoyed writing, and that's why I used to publish in academia. But never to this extent. Never to the extent of writing a book. I did not
Right.
know that. That was in my horizon.
So what prompted you to write the book? Like who did you write this book for?
You know, it's funny because I did the project, and then I was like, well, this is fascinating. And I remember I was not a very spiritual person, but they say wisdom is the highest state of consciousness, right? And
Mm.
and before I even then did this, I was looking at scales and tests, and only humans can embody and test for and assess and look for wisdom, right? So after I wrote this, or after I did the project, I started writing, and I'm like, this needs to be a book, and I need to tell the world about it. So I wrote
Right.
it for everyone. And I specifically did not want to include any complicated jargon. As you can tell when you read it, it's a
Mhm.
simple read because I'm used to that. I've done that. I've written in that jargon before, and it really doesn't mean anything. It's just hard to understand. So, and I'm an immigrant. It was really important for me to have someone, and I've been in ESL classes. ESL is English as a second language. It was really important for me that anyone can pick up the book and read it.
Right. Right. I love that. So, if there's a woman who's listening to this now and, like she's in her early 50s and she's in that, like, how do I figure out the meaning and purpose of my life? Like, where do I go from here? Like my life before was, I did what I needed to do, but now I want to do something that feels really meaningful. How would she use these principles or these eight measures of wisdom to her advantage? Like, where would she start with that?
I would tell that woman to start with buying the book. You answer the questions at the end of each chapter and realize that your assessment of life will change throughout the years. So that's why I have two
Mm,
different days or times because what you think of one thing's going to change in a few years. And
yeah.
also, after the fires, after COVID, after so much, I really feel like we really need to honor our joy more. And we
Mm.
need to, life is so fleeting, it's so temporary. And I would buy the book and say, what, and ask yourself, what gives yourself more meaning? And look at the eight elements and also pick the ones that you can work on more. Because just by doing that, you'll find more meaning in it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think even just like as I was reading it, like I said, it kept prompting questions in my mind, right? Like, which I think this is really the intention of your book, is just to kind of get you out of this kind of linear line of thinking. Like, this is my life, this is the box in which I operate, this is the box in which I think.
Right.
Because again, as I started considering like all of these eight elements, for myself and kind of checking the boxes on them, right? Like resilience, okay, it makes sense. And then, when it came to humility and creativity, where I'm like, well, how could I be more humble? Like, how could I, expand creativity more? And it just started really kind of prompting questions in my mind because I hadn't thought of wisdom as being like this what's the word I'm looking for, this like tactical, like being able to pull it down to eight elements.
Yeah, exactly. It was very much, I know it when I see it. It was very much something I'm not okay with, right? Because I need more granularity, I need more definitions, I need more clarity. And it was very much like, oh, that person's wise. Oh, and that's where I could not be okay with. And that's why I made it more understandable for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, because to the point that you made earlier, like who we are changes as we go through life, right? And our relationship to
Yes.
these eight elements will be drastically different, as we move through life. So as we go through, like, raising our kids leaving home, menopause, thinking about meaning and purpose in our lives, thinking about like impact or whatever it is. Again, it's kind of going back to these eight elements and being, and just like, it's almost an open question. Like, first of all, what drew my attention first? Right. And spirituality was the one that I kind of went to first. And then, like, what are the questions that I'm asking myself about these things? And
And
it's,
I think that's good. I think the fact that you're asking questions is good. Because the goal of this is for you to realize there's a lot more to all of this.
yeah.
And I defined it as eight. I used research to define it. And wisdom is such a woo-woo topic, and I use a very methodical,
Mm-hmm.
research-based way of defining it. I defined it as eight, but the reality is this condition has and opens so many doors in how I think, and as you're saying, how you think, how I'm sure many others think as well.
Right. So when somebody reads this book, kind of what is it that you want them to walk away with? Like when they close this book, like what's the thing that you want them to walk away with? Like, is it a question? Is it like some change in them? What's the impact that you would like to create with this book?
I want them to pay attention to those eight, like I start to, and I want them to think, "Wow, I can really make my life better if I apply these, and if I
Mm,
apply this, or I'm gonna work on this." So I want them to close the book and think to themselves, what's the meaning of life, and how can I make it better?
yeah. Yeah. Because the thing that I say about every reinvention journey, and especially as we come into this chapter of our lives where we're kind of questioning anything, is the answer to all of the questions that we have is already inside us, right? And it's up to us to start listening because there's a voice inside us that's constantly talking, right? And for most of us, we're so busy doing what we do and living in our box that we can't hear that, right? And I feel like some of the topics that you've defined here in the eight elements are jumping off points to coming back to ourselves, like coming back to like, oh, how do I feel about that particular thing? How do I operate in that particular category? um which again, I mean, the answers are always inside of us, always, always.
There are, and it's funny because, someone was saying, my publicist was saying, she's like, these are elements we really don't learn in school, but these
True.
can really enhance our lives. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's the goal. Is and it's not intelligence, it's life intelligence. It's what will make your life better.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So, um, if somebody scores low on an element, and we kind of talked about this a little bit already, like what is kind of the first, let's say you score a 4 on one of the elements, kind of what is the next compassionate step that you would give to that person?
So the reason I even wrote the wisdom IQ test, and I started it a while ago, it took me a long time, was because I was on a TV show, and on the TV show there was, I don't know, 5 people. Each person was like, "Oh, I think I have this. Oh, I think I have that. Oh, I think," and so they really wanted to kind of say, "Oh, I was this or that." And I think the wisdom IQ test is kind of a way for you to identify what needs help and what doesn't. And so if someone scores low, the first thing I would say is start thinking about that. Just by noticing that, by thinking about it, by making it an important part of life, that's your first step. The second is getting my book and learning more about it too. And also, we have AI, we have internet, we have so much these days you can learn more about. But the first step is noticing it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Awareness is more than half the battle, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because a
So,
lot of people are not.
yeah. Anything that we can do that, and this is why I love to cover topics like we're talking about now, and just the things that I dig into on the podcast, is that anything that can help us gain some knowledge or insight into ourselves, or to bring a new level of awareness, is checking the box because that is the job, is for us to just become more conscious and aware of how we show up in our own lives, and like how we can use that, or yeah, basically how we could use that to improve our lives, because there's so much stuff that we have in our blind spot that we can't
So
see,
much.
right? And yeah, anything that helps us become more aware of who we truly are underneath everything, is important. And I think this is why I was really drawn to your work, because of that. Like I said, the questions that it kind of prompted in my mind as I was going through it about, how do I show up in my own life that way? Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So when you were doing the interviews, was there a particular story that really just kind of moved you and made you really think about your own life and how you were approaching this project? Was there anything that particularly stood out for you?
I don't know if there's anything that stood out. I think, as I said, the resilience of these people was
Mm,
really, like, I interviewed a woman who had lost, and I think I talked about her in my resilience chapter, 2 husbands. And when I talked to her, I vividly remember and then her dad one time came and lived with her, and he had a below the knee amputation, so his legs did not work, right? And I was like, oh my God, that must have been so difficult. And she goes, oh no, he got to spend time with his grandkids. So that's when I talk about how they're related. And I think the positivity, I think what really struck home is these people had all gone through so much, yet they were not angry. They were not bitter. And there was just more peace. They were kind of content.
mm.
And I feel like that's the take home is, getting all angry is just going to hurt you.
Yeah, I love what you just said there, because so there's something I hadn't considered. I love what you just said there, as like having a sense of peace, because when you say the word wisdom to me, it has that sense. It has a sense of peace in it. Like, this person has learned this stuff, come through it, but they have a perspective on it that's they're at peace with it. No matter what happened to them, they're at peace with it.
It's funny. I tell someone, I'm like, think about the monkey in the movie The Lion King. He's a wise old monkey, and I'm like, just think about it. Would he ever get mad? Would he ever? He's at peace. He has seen tragedy. He has seen trauma. He has seen it all. But he's at peace, and he's not, he doesn't get flustered. So I agree.
Right. Yeah, I love that. So, how does this research continue to impact your day to day life?
I think it's interesting because someone was like, "Well, do you want to ever go back and see patients? Is that part of your identity?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, that was my old life. That led me to this, and now my research. I look forward to the day, which will be soon, I'm sure, that I'm fine. I'm physically fine." And I can tell everyone more about the book and about what I found.
Right. Is there another book coming?
I don't think so. I mean, I was telling other people it took me 10 years to come up with a lot of these ideas. As my body fell apart, I noticed things, and then I hired a research assistant, and I hired a marketing specialist, and I had an editor. And I'm not an author. It's not something I just don't enjoy writing all the time. I'm very to the point. When I would write my papers in manuscripts as a researcher, you kind of really have to limit what you say. So I don't see another book. Look, I'm open. But I don't want to be writing again. But I don't see it.
Wow. So what is next for you then?
I think first of all, next is healing my body.
Yes.
Second is once I'm healed is having I love speaking and talks and giving talks about the book and what I found and my experience with it.
Mm, that's amazing. That's so good. Um, Thank you very much for sharing this with us. With because I just again, it's like this topic that I talk about all the time, but I'm like, had never really considered like what are we actually talking about when we say wisdom, and it's given me a whole new frame of reference for it, and just some important questions, which is amazing. Anything that can open doors in my mind, I'm like, I am all for. So this is so good. But before we close off, I'm adding something to the end of my podcast, which is kind of 3 rapid fire questions that I would love to get your perspective on. And you're the first victim of these. So let's see how this goes. So, for the women who are listening, um, what is one book, practice, or idea that you come back to again and again in your life?
One book practice or idea is breathing. It's really
Breathing.
like the minute I get upset or hurt or anything, it's taking deep breaths. And I do the box breathing, the 4 in, hold 4, 4 out.
Right.
And I make sure that my exhales are longer than my inhales. And I know as a physician, they kind of reset your fight and flight system, fight,
Yeah.
fight, or what freeze. But it just breathing, the basic breathing really helps.
Breathing. I know, right? Like breath, the beginning of everything, breath. Love
Yeah.
that. Fill in the blanks of this statement. Midlife is the best time to blank because blank.
Oh, but playing so midlife is the best time to reflect.
Mm,
Um, because you have more strength, perspective, and ideas than you did when you were younger. It's funny because
yeah.
one of the questions I had for my of the 10 for my 16 interviewees was what advice do you have for the younger generation? And all of them, not all, most were like, oh God, that's something I'm so glad I'm not. because the younger
Right.
generation is more concerned about emotions.
Yeah.
And that's something that don't really take control over your life now. When you're older, you know what's important, what's not. You have perspective. You're able to reflect.
Yeah. So true. So if you could stick a sticky note with a question or a message to a midlife woman's mirror, what would you put on it?
I would say remember that things happen for you and not to
Oh,
you.
I love that. So good. So good. I love your answers to these questions. Thank you for sharing this perspective with us and sharing your book with us. Everybody who is listening, I encourage you to go check out the Wisdom IQ quiz. And we'll make sure that that gets in the show notes, and also the book. It's just a very, like I said, it opened so many doors in my mind and so many questions, which again, anytime we can get perspective, it's a good thing. So where can people find your book, and also where can they find the Wisdom IQ test?
So the book is on Amazon, but I urge them to go on lauragabayan.com.
Yeah.
And that's where they can sign up for my weekly newsletter. They get the Wisdom Wednesdays on that. And also, the book is on Amazon, but they can also on my website take the test, the Wisdom IQ test that you said. It would only take about 5 to 7 minutes,
Yeah.
and it's a great starter. If you're not ready to buy the book, it's great to start with the test.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Well, thank you for spending this time with us. And to those of you listening, if you like what you heard, the greatest compliment you could give us would be to pass this episode on to a friend, a colleague, sister, relative, anybody that you think could get something out of it, or you could just leave a rating or review on this episode. So thanks so much for listening. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Old Chicks No Shit podcast. If you like what you heard, the greatest compliment you could give us would be to comment below and subscribe. Or better yet, you could share this episode with a friend, a relative, or somebody you think could get something out of it. And remember, midlife is not the beginning of the end. It's simply the beginning of your kick-ass next chapter.